I walked in upstairs for the last minute of the shiur. There might be a drop of overlap. I didn't hear the shiur, but if two people say it, maybe there's a nugget of truth. Aryeh sho'ag milo yira. The pasuk says in Amos, this is not on your sheet, when the lion roars, who is not in awe? Who is not scared? Aryeh sho'ag. And there are those that say that Aryeh stands for Elul, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippurim. And the mashal is given, imagine you're walking down the street and you turn the corner and all of a sudden there's a lion there. Like, whoa, you start running away. You try to get a selfie as you're running, because if you don't get a selfie, it didn't happen. But it's very scary. And yet, if you go to Ramat Gan and you go to the safari, the first place I want to go to is to see the lions, because that's a quality zoo if it has lions. What's the difference? If the lion's over there and I'm over here, if there's a hefsek between me and the lion, there's a moat, there's a gate, that's not scary. The lion's over there and I'm over here. That's not so intense. That's not so scary, so that's fine. But if there's no hefsek between me and the lion, if it's just me and the lion, and there's no break, that's pretty intense. That's the true meaning of the word awesome feeling in the true English sense of the word in the English language. Aryeh sho'ag, our job over these weeks is to break down any fences, to break down any walls between us and the lion, between us and Elul, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippurim. Elul's almost gone. Only have a few hours left to Elul, but we have Haba Leina Latova, we have Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippurim. Some say the Hey is Hoshana Rabbah, but we have to make sure that we break down these fences. So for the next few moments, let's talk about every mitzvah is chaviva, every mitzvah is beloved. One of the mitzvahs that we're going to do very soon, and that, of course, is the mitzvah of shofar. And it seems like from Chazal that there's something unique about the mitzvah of shofar. There are other mitzvahs that we do, and there are mitzvahs we eat matzah, and we shake a lulav, and we sit in a sukkah. But shofar somehow has some other magical power. Right? The Gemara says in Rosh Hashanah, Daf Tezayin, in source number 1, shofar reminds HaKadosh Baruch Hu of Akedas Yitzchak. We're not going to read everything inside because of the hour. But the Gemara also says, at the end of a halachic discussion, in source number 2, I just gave you the last line. The Gemara talks about the types of shofars one is allowed to use. Any kosher animal's horn you could use. The best is a ram because of Akedas Yitzchak, but you can't use a cow. Can't use a bull. Can't use the horn of a bull. Why? It reminds HaKadosh Baruch Hu of the golden calf, the Chet HaEgel. And the Gemara, which I didn't give you before this line, says, but wait a minute. What, the Kohen Gadol wears gold. Doesn't that remind Hashem of the golden calf, the Egel Azav? The Gemara says, no. The standard is only in the Kodesh Kadashim. In the Holy of Holies, that's where you got to be very careful. You can't remind Hashem. So that's why the Kohen Gadol, when he goes into the Kodesh Kadashim, only white clothing, only the linen, nothing gold. So the Gemara says, okay, so the standard is only in the Kodesh Kadashim. So what? Shofar, I'm not in the Kodesh Kadashim. I'm in Yerushalayim when I blow shofar. I'm in Beit Shemesh when I blow shofar. I'm all over the world when I blow shofar. So why should I have the same standard? Says the Gemara, because when you blow shofar, it brings you into the Kodesh Kadashim. When you blow shofar, says the Gemara, Kivin de lizikaron kibifnim dami. You're inside. It takes you in. Matzah doesn't take us into the Kodesh Kadashim. No other mitzvah do Chazal say such a magical idea. How does it get us into the Kodesh Kadashim? Moreover, the Psukim tell us in Baloscha, you have it there in source number 3, and elsewhere in Tanakh, that shofar is also found in another context. And that's Shas Milchama. At a time of war, we blow shofar. Is that just to scare the enemy? Right? Make loud noise. Doesn't sound that way from the Psukim. Right? The Psukim tell us, V'chisavo milchama ba'artzachem, when there's war in your land, alatzar atzorereschem, v'arayosem b'chatzotzros. For tonight, we're not going to distinguish between trumpets and shofars. You're going to blow, v'niskartem l'fnei Hashem Elokeichem, and that somehow will bring your memory up to God. And then v'roshatem me'avechem, you'll be safe from your enemies. Doesn't sound like we're doing this to scare the enemy. Somehow we blow shofar, and that reminds Hashem of something. And then v'noshatem me'avechem. What is it about shofar? Another question. And again, a little bit I heard in that last minute upstairs, but this is just the basis for the rest of our words. We blow shofar in the middle of Shemona Esrei, in the middle of the Amidah. You're not allowed to do anything in the middle of the Amidah, in the middle of davening. Right? The poskim even discuss about, are you allowed to hold a siddur? You're not allowed to hold anything. Okay, on the siddur, you need it for davening. But really, you're not supposed to do anything. You can't wink. You can't look. And we're not only allowed, but we're mandated to blow shofar in the middle of davening, in the middle of Shemona Esrei. How are we allowed to do that? Why is that appropriate? We don't do any mitzvah in the middle of Shemona Esrei, in the middle of the Amidah. And one more question, which again is the beginning of the answer. We say on Rosh Hashanah in just a few hours from now, we say in Musaf that Hashem is, source 5, Mevin Uma'azin L'kol Tekiyasenu. Hashem, what's Mevin? He understands. Hashem understands our shofar. What's there to understand about shofar? He doesn't understand our sukkah. He sees us sitting in a sukkah. He sees us doing all the mitzvahs. He sees us eating matzah. He understands our shofar. He hears our shofar. What does it mean, Mevin Umazin? So it seems clear, many achronim explicate this, that there's an element to shofar that's different, that's added. It's not just a ma'aseh ha-mitzvah like other mitzvahs like we do throughout the year. But shofar has an element of prayer. It's a prayer without words, but it's a prayer nonetheless. And that's why it's most appropriate to do it in the middle of the Amidah. We daven with words and we daven without words. And Hashem understands our shofar. Mevin Uma'azin. The Gemara tells us in Rosh Hashanah Daf Chavav, source number 6, what's the ideal shape of a shofar? Sometimes you have those big twirly ones, not like big. Sometimes you have like the more like straight and just curved at the end. What's the best shape? Says the Gemara Machlokas. But the yesod, the basis of both opinions in this Machlokas is the same. Fascinating. What's the best posture to pray? Right? Is the best way to pray is like bent over? Like this is bent in front of Hashem. If it's best to bend, then the best shape of the shofar is to be bent. Kama dekayif inish tfei daite mali. And the other opinion says, no, it's better to daven straight up. Don't move. They say Rav Kook stood there like, didn't move. No shuckling, no, just stood there. So which is better? So whichever way is better to daven, that's the shape of the shofar. As we say in Hebrew, ma kesher. What does the shape of the shofar have to do with my position in davening? When I daven, I daven. The shape of the shofar is the tool that I use to fulfill the mitzvah. But if shofar is itself a form of prayer, a form of tefillah, then it makes a lot of sense. That the shape of the shofar parallels and reflects my position when I daven. And there are other rayas to this as well. Go to source number 9, the Rambam's Lashon, top of the second page. The Rambam tells us, top line, mitzvah saseh min HaTorah. There's a biblical mitzvah, mitzvah saseh, lizok ularia b'chatzotzros, to cry out and blow trumpets, al kol tzara shetavo latzibur, whenever a tzara happens. Right? A mitzvah, we don't dream about doing all mitzvahs. Right? We don't dream about ever doing the mitzvah of returning stolen items. We don't dream about chalitza. We don't dream about avelus. Those are mitzvahs. A mitzvah means that Hashem tells us what to do in every situation in life. That's what a mitzvah means. So this is a mitzvah that we never would dream or want to do, but it's a mitzvah. Whenever there's a tzara out there, we have to turn to Hashem. But look at the Rambam's Lashon. Mitzvahs, I say it's a mitzvah from the Torah to cry out and to blow chatzotzros on every tzara. Is there a comma in that phrase, or is there no comma? Meaning you can read it. It's a mitzvah, I say, to cry out, comma, and to blow trumpets. Or maybe there's no comma. It's a mitzvah, I say, to cry out and blow trumpets. And the crying out is also going on the chatzotzros, because that's also a form of crying. And maybe, to close this point, how does the shofar bring us into the Kodesh Kadashim? No other mitzvah does that. Well, let's remember, what's the definition of prayer? Reb Chaim Soloveitchik has a comment, some of you might be familiar with it, based on a Rambam, that there are two types of kavana. There are two types of intent. One type of intent is knowing what the words mean. We live in a generation where any language you want, you could have a siddur, you could have a machzor, knowing what the words mean. That's one type of intent, one type of kavana. And that you should at least have for the first bracha of Shemona Esrei. But there's another type of intent that you need to have the whole davening. And the Rambam says if you don't have this intent, that you didn't daven. And that is to recognize that I'm talking to God. To recognize that when I take those 3 steps forward, I am now in the private office of the CEO of the universe. And now I'm talking. And it's just me and him. That's the definition. If I don't know I'm doing that, I didn't daven. What am I? I'm misasik ba'alma is Reb Chaim's lashon. I'm just involved in something else. You have to know that even if I don't know exactly what every word means, I have to know the action, the activity that I'm involved in. So that's the definition of tefillah. Private meeting with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So if shofar is prayer, and prayer is private meeting with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, then we understand the Gemara. That shofar brings us into the Kodesh Kadashim. Because shofar itself is a form of tefillah, and if that's what tefillah does, then that's what shofar does as well. But our question for tonight is, okay, shofar is a form of tefillah. There are other proofs which we didn't go into. It's a tefillah without words. Why do we need a tefillah without words? We have plenty of tefillah with words. The machzor is plenty long. Hopefully we're at an age where, we're patient and we don't think it's too long, but we all remember a couple of decades ago, looking at the page numbers, can't believe Musaf ends on 362, right? If you use an art scroll, it halves it. It's Baruch Hashem, double every time you turn. But we have so many words. What do we need a tefillah without words for? It's enough to have tefillah with words. 5 ideas. What's the message of tefillah without words? What's the message? Message number 1. And this was alluded to, I heard upstairs. The Shemi Shmuel in source number 11. I didn't give you the whole piece. Shemi Shmuel and others notes that we know Rosh Hashanah is day 6 of creation. Yesterday was day 1, Chaf Ha'el. Rosh Hashanah was day 6. It was the day that man was created. Man was created on Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah is the day that Hashem blew into us our neshama. Vayipach ba'apav nishmas chayim. That happened on Rosh Hashanah. He blew into us. Suggests the Shemi Shmuel, maybe shofar is kind of an acknowledgement and recognition we're blowing back. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we recognize our uniqueness that you gave us, and from the depths of our neshama, from our kishkis, from all the way inside, we blow up. We blow the sound back. And says the Shemi Shmuel in source 11, Shofar uhevel hayotzi mipnimiyas halev. Shofar comes from the deepest part of our soul. Bilti nislabesh behemotzos. It's not covered with the physical, right? When we say words, we're using our lips and our tongue and our teeth, so we're using physical bodies. But if we just make a sound, not using anything, it's just from here. It's from a deeper part of our soul. And says the Shemi Shmuel, sounds, because they're not clothed in words, could get even higher in Shemayim, could get even farther up. The world without words. The world with just sounds going all the way up from where HaKadosh Baruch Hu blew it into us. We blow back, he says, Yesh bekocho nami lahamshich milamala hashpah ruchanit bilti mislabeshes. And that's why a tefillah without words is so powerful on Rosh Hashanah. And we know how many times this year did we, like the shofar, just call out to HaKadosh Baruch Hu without words. A krechts, a groan, a cry. We've done that this year, but that's the shofar. Sometimes there are no words, but there's a sound. And that's the power that we could do. We can't explain. We can't verbalize our emotions. But we could call out to Hashem with sound. Number one. Number two. Second idea. The Torah quotes in the beginning of Hilchos Rosh Hashanah in source number 12, 3 reasons why we blow shofar in Elul. So we're going to use one of those reasons for our purposes. So the third reason the Torah quotes, why do we blow shofar in Elul? La'arbev es ha-satan. To confuse Satan, to confuse the Satan. After all, we blow for a month, he thinks it's Rosh Hashanah, and it's not. Then Erev Rosh Hashanah, we stop blowing, so he falls for it. And la'arbev es ha-satan. So many different pshatim, exactly what that means. I brought a couple of Svarim. I have a Sefer on Yom Noraim. There's an article about la'arbev es ha-satan. Anybody wants afterwards. But let me give you one that's not in the Sefer. An idea, la'arbev es ha-satan. The Meshech Chachma, one of the greats from just over 100 years ago, has an amazing ha'ara. He says, we find in Chazal that angels learn. Angels want to learn Torah. And the Gemara in Shabbos, why are you giving the Torah to OUisrael, to Moshe Rabbeinu? We want the Torah. It's not fair. So we find that angels learn. We also find that angels sing. Right? We quote angels every day. When we say Kedusha, we will sanctify you. Angels sing, angels learn, angels don't pray. We never find in Chazal, says the Meshech Chachma, that an angel davens. The root of davening is beseeching, bakasha. Lo matzanu b'ha'ishim aruchaniyim, 13. Tefillah, rakshira. We never find an angel davens. Why? Why can't angels daven? So maybe we have to appreciate Rabbi Yosef Albo's words. Sefer HaYikarim, one of the greats of the Rishonim, who asks, there's a question about tefillah that has bothered many, and since a proper answer wasn't given, it has led them astray. And that is, says the Sefer HaYikarim, Ma'ashehevi anashim lefakbik b'tefillah. People doubt the efficacy of tefillah because they don't understand. How does tefillah work? If I'm supposed to get it, then why do I have to daven for it? And if I'm not supposed to get it, then what, tefillah changes Hashem's mind? Hashem is perfect. Hashem is unchanging. It's one of the animamins, right? Hu rishon v'hu achron. So how does tefillah work? If I'm supposed to get it, then I shouldn't have to daven for it. And if I'm not supposed to get it, what? Tefillah, I changed. I said the magic words. So explain the Sefer HaYikarim as we know. No. Tefillah does not change God. Tefillah changes man. We're supposed to be different people after we daven than before we davened. Right? Before davening, I was Rosner A. That was one package from Shemayim. After davening, I'm Rosner B. It's a different package in Shemayim for me. Because every couple of hours, I get on low battery, have to recharge. To remember, who's in charge of Refuah and Parnasa? What's the destiny of the Jewish people? What's the center of my life? Every couple of hours. Because tefillah is supposed to change us. Somebody once came to Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, Posek Ador, and said, Rabbi, I need a Yeshua. Well, tell me a skula. Give me a good skula. How many fasts, how many people do I pay to say Telem at the Kota for 40 days? Wonderful, but Rav Shlomo Zalman says, I don't paskin skulas, I don't know any of that stuff. I'll tell you what I do when I need a Yeshua. I try to say my brachas with kavana. Imagine the types of people we would be if we said 5 brachas with kavana out of 100. Imagine how we would be changed people. Because tefillah changes the petitioner. Angels can't change. Angels are static. Angels are created exactly the way they will be for eternity. So angels, it's not shaykh for them to daven. Davening is a uniquely human tool or even a human weapon. It's something in our arsenal that angels don't have. And maybe la'arbe v'sasatan, we confuse and confound the Satan and all of his buddies and all the angels by focusing on a tool that they can't do and they don't have. And that's the shofar. We daven with words, we daven with all types of davening. Because that's what we need to do. And we know sometimes that's all we need to do. Especially those of us that were mostly in the OREF. When I put a couple of sons in cars last Simchas Torah and they drove away, hearing that my son-in-law was also on the way, and having 3 boys in Gaza for 4 to 5 months, the only tool that my wife and I had was our siddur, was our connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu in prayer. La'arbe v'sasatan, tefillah with words, tefillah without words. Number 2. Number 3. Third idea. Third and fourth idea, both from Rav Soloveitchik. Third idea, based on the Gemara in Brachas Lama Gimel, source 15. It says the Gemara, Hahu denachas kamei Rabbi Chanina. There was someone who was davening in Rabbi Chanina's shul. And what happened? Amar, he gets it to Chazoras HaShatz and he starts davening. Okay. Hakel, Hagadol, Hagibra, Vanora, awesome, stupendous, amazing, tremendous. And 15 more adjectives about HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Amazing, beautiful. Rabbi Chanina waits till he's finished. Himtin lo ad desiyem. Right? Interesting. Every detail of the Gemara is there to teach us something. He waited. Why did he wait till he was finished? If he was upset, why didn't he go over to him right away? He didn't want to embarrass him. He waited till he was finished. Went over to him afterwards and said, what did you just do? What, you finished? Now you got it? Now you perfectly described Hashem. You got it. You described him. Those 15 adjectives captured his essence. Perfect, shkoyach. It's impossible. You can never finish. You can never finish. The only reason that we use those adjectives is because Moshe Rabbeinu said those adjectives in Parshas Eikev. Hakel, Hagadol, Hagibra, Vanora. That's it. And Anshe Gezakadola told us to say those adjectives. But you're going to add more? It's like a king that has a palace full of gold coins, says the Gemara, and you say, wow, you got beautiful silver coins there. It's a busha. Says the Gemara, says Rav Soloveitchik, we can never finish praising. We can never finish asking. We can never finish thanking. We can never finish. Rav Soloveitchik said, it's interesting, right before we leave shul, we say a prayer, Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol. Aleinu l'shabeach. It's incumbent upon me to praise you. Isn't that funny? Aleinu, it's incumbent upon me to praise you. Bye. And then we leave. Aleinu should be the first tefillah. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, and then you daven. Says the Rav, no, we davened, and then we're going to leave. What, we're finished? Now we can leave? Now, there's nothing more to ask for, or to thank, or to praise. Nothing, we're done. No. Really, we should spend our entire life in shul. But we're human. And what do you want from us? We have to live our lives. Before we leave shul, we acknowledge that we can never finish. And that's what allows us. The Rav called this the matir for leaving shul. Right? You'd see me, that's why we don't say it all day Yom Kippur. There's no Aleinu, because we're in shul all day. Right? He says that's why maybe there's a minhag to say Adon Olam and Yigdal at the end of davening. It's as if we're starting again. It's like you can never finish. You can never finish. On Rosh Hashanah, we're not taking any chances. On Rosh Hashanah, we say plenty of words, but then you know what we do? We blow shofar as if to say to Hashem, ... You finish for us, please. Because we can never finish. And it's Rosh Hashanah. We want to be complete. We want to be focused and get everything included. And therefore, says Rav Soloveitchik, we blow the shofar as if to say, Hashem, please, you finish for us. We'll go to number 4. There's a little more like stories and stuff, but I know it's late. Fourth message of the shofar without words, also from Rav Soloveitchik. The Rav says, this is in 17 and 18. You know, we daven and we use words, but do we always know that what we daven for is the best thing for us? we could daven and daven, I need this job. When I don't get this job, my life is incomplete. I need this job. I need this apartment. I need this to happen. And if it doesn't happen, forget it. We don't know. We think we know, but we don't know what's best for us. Every day we say, Usakabel berachamim uvaratzon es tfilaseinu. Hashem, accept our tefillah, but only if it's good for us. Usakabel berachamim, with compassion. If it's not good for us, feel free to ignore. You know, sometimes you get emails like that. If you have already answered, feel free to ignore. Hashem, please, feel free to ignore if it's not good for us. Because we don't always know exactly what the best thing for us is. Right? In 17 where it's underlined. Ein adam yachol lahakir et matzavo al nachon. Bichdei leida be'emes b'agma levakesh. We don't know. Rav Soloveitchik said, unbelievable. He says, you don't know how hard I davened when I was in Berlin that I would not have to go to America. I so didn't want to go to the Treifa Medina. But Baruch Hashem, he didn't listen to my words. Because he knew what was best for me. So we don't always know. And on Rosh Hashanah, we don't take any chances. We daven, and we use a lot of words. But then we blow shofar as if to say to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, please fill in the blank. Please, you know what's good. So fill in bechavod. Not ... That's number 3. Right? You finish. But fill in the blank. Usakabel barachamim uvaratzon. You know how long this should take. You know exactly what needs to happen. We have no idea. We daven that our leaders have the proper wisdom. But Hashem, you're the ultimate. You could do it. You could do it. There's nothing beyond the HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He could finish everything. And he knows what's best. So we daven and we daven and we daven. But then we blow the shofar. As if to say, it's not set. Right? And quote, the Ksav Sofer says, Al tefillas chakfa. Don't make your tefillah so set and rigid. Be a little flexible. Number 4. So what do we have so far? Let's review. Number 1, why do we have a tefillah without words? Number 1, the Shem Yishmuel, because it just sounds. We acknowledge Hashem blew into us today, so we blow back, and sometimes sounds could get even farther and higher in Shamayim, because it's not covered in words that were made by the teeth and the tongue and the lips. Number 1. Number 2, la'arbi v'sasatan. It's a unique human tool that we use and we want to emphasize on this day. Something that's unique to us. Animals can't do it. Angels can't do it. Only humans. Number 3, we can never finish. Praising, thanking, asking. So ... That's the shofar. Number 4, we don't always know exactly what the best thing for us is. We hope we do. We daven with words. But then we say, Hashem, please fill in the blank. 5, 5th and final idea. When we daven, we all use our own siddur, our own machzor. And imagine, everybody in shul, and we have these lines. Each has their own line that's connecting to Hashem through our words. Shofar's one sound. Shofar unites us. The shofar binds us together. And we all go up together in that one sound. And when the Jewish people are united, there's nothing that we can't accomplish. There's no power that could overpower us. Yerushalmi says, the days of Achav, they won wars even though they were over the Avodah Zarah, because they were united and they were connected. And only OUisrael, we should not forget and know what so many percentage, right? Don't read the news. Don't look at the media, because all they're into is pirud. But there's so much achdus underneath. There's so much connection. Only OUisrael has 300,000 Israelis coming back in the first month, upping the population by 3%. Because Thailand could wait. I need to be here. I need to connect to my brethren. Right? My next door neighbor, who I share a wall with, right? He's a full-time pharmacist. He's made his life crazy the past year, twice a week, running barbecues for hundreds of soldiers, twice a week, leaving at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, getting back at 2 o'clock in the morning. The meat and the grills and the people and the manpower, twice a week, and he has a bunch of kids. Because this is what I need to do. This is OUisrael. So many stories. I'll tell you one little less intense story. This summer I was in camp, and my sister called me. She's like, Shalom, you have to hear this story. I'm like, what? She says, I was in Yerushalayim, but my father was nifter over the summer. So she was at the apartment, and she was leaving, and she's like, I was throwing some stuff out, these huge, big green dumpsters, and she threw a bunch of stuff in the dumpster, and by mistake, in her hand was also her car keys. And she threw it into this humongous dumpster, with the cats walking out on top, right? It's like, okay, it's in the black hole, right? So, okay, she had her son pick her up, and she drove back home. The next morning, she says, you know what? Can't hurt. She called the Department of Sanitation here in Yerushalayim. She says, I lost my keys in the car, so I don't know. If it was me, I would have said, lady, tough luck. Next time, be more careful. So what does he say? Which in Ramot? Okay, call this guy. Here's his cell phone. He's in charge of that area. Give away a private cell phone number, first of all. That's pretty amazing. Anyway, so my sister called this guy, and he said, oh, which dumpster was it? Which address? Oh, is that one? He's like, I'm not promising anything. You know what? Call me back in a couple of hours. Before my sister calls back, she starts getting these videos. There are these WhatsApps, like Only Good News. So these videos were put on there. Anyway, so they get these videos. The street strewn with garbage. There's garbage all over the street. They turned over the dumpster. And you see these guys sweeping around with the brooms. They found her keys. The guy calls up and says, I found your keys. She's like, oh my gosh, when are you open till? When can I come? He's like, wait a minute, where do you live? My sister says, Chashmonim. He's like, I'm going to be in Modi'in later. You know what? Maybe we'll just meet there. True story. My sister. When OUisrael are united, there's nothing more powerful. And that's what the shofar does. Because davening, we each say our own words, but a shofar is one sound. And it binds us and connects us like nothing else. And just to close, we know the Gemara talks about there are different, we're not sure exactly what sound we're supposed to hear. What does a TORAH mean in the Torah? Yom TORAH. Does it mean what we call Shvarim? Does it mean what we call TORAH? Does it mean Shvarim, TORAH? We do all of them just to be safe. But we know there's a Mesorah. We have a Mesorah that whatever the sound is, beforehand there's a straight sound. And afterwards there's a straight sound. Because before all the bumps and all the cries and all the groans and the ups and the downs of the Shvarim TORAHs, which life is, things started out yashar. There was a tekiah rishona lefaneha. But Hashem promised and always promises there's going to be a straight sound after all the Shvarim TORAHs. There's going to be a tekiah la'achareha. Because in Jewish history, whenever there was darkness, it was always followed by tremendous light. Right after Churban Beis Hamikdash, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi wrote the Mishnah. Rachmana litzlan, soon after the Crusades, even during, was the greatest development of Torah Sheba'al Peh, the days of the Rishonim. 1492, after the Inquisition, Jews were thrown out of so many countries. That's when Torah started to flourish in Tzfat and Yerushalayim. And just 3 years after the Shoah, the state of Israel was born. Because after darkness, there's always light. Hashem promises there's always a tekiah la'achareha. And maybe this year we'll just have a little extra kavana during those tekiyas. Because Rav Kook says, whenever there's milchama, mischadish ha'olam, after that milchama, beruach chadash, v'raglei Mashiach misgalim yoser. The footsteps of Mashiach can be heard. The tekiah la'achareha. We blow it. We believe in it. We daven that it should happen. This should be a year of nechama, of geula and yeshuos for all of OUisrael.